Anita here and welcome to day 10 of the Inktober challenge. Now today is a little bit different. You're probably going to get this video really late just because I started really late. And because of that reason, I've also already inked my piece off camera. This is not something that's going to happen every day, but you can expect it for the next few days just because I have my taxes period thing happening, so I have to do that. And there are some other things I had to do as well. Just everything got pushed. I actually started this really late into the day, around 1 I think. So usually I start at 10, so as you can see it's just, there's a big difference. And I'm also, at the moment I'm actually recording this, it's now 6:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, before the video is rendered, it's probably going to be around 10. Seriously, apologies for that. I really apologize. Just something that happens, I really try to keep the videos early just because I want to just hit that sweet spot for everyone here, at least in Europe, where it's like evening, and everybody is home and can watch it. That's just something I have in my head and I try to do. But it's just something, sometimes it doesn't gonna work. So as I've mentioned, I have the lines already done. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get rid of a little bit of the pencil lines from underneath. I wasn't exactly sure if whether or not they would be in the way of my of the washes that I wanted to do. They weren't. They wouldn't be because I went much darker than I expected. Well, actually, I don't know what I was expecting in the beginning because I wanted to have a really dark background. When I'm looking at the pictures recently, I work with a black background, but I don't really work with those gradiented dark washes or any gradiented. Oh my god, any gradient washes to begin with. I can't concentrate. So what I wanted to experiment with today is just trying to make washes that are really close in the tonal value, but so that you would have a nice gradient within the clouds. And then the character in the front, I wasn't exactly sure at this point yet what I wanted to do with the character in front. I will talk about it in a little bit. So I started with my darkest as usual, and that's the black, of course, and then I've just added lots of black to that bit of water that I had in the well. And I just started filling in the area. And it would probably be much faster and much easier if I had my character masked off. But I didn't, well, I have a bit of a mixed feelings when it comes to masking liquid. Just because I use a lot of heat gun, like heat. Just heat. I use a lot of heat in my paintings, and recently at least, especially, if I was working on a painting just for myself, I wouldn't have that many problems because I could have just gone, and waited for the paper to dry. But when I work for YouTube videos, for paintings that I will make on YouTube, I just, I need that time I need the paint to be dry quickly. And so I need to use that heat gun, or heat tool. Now I'm confused because of the recent demonetization of one of my videos. I'm confused if I'm even allowed to say the word, heat gun. So it's just the heat thing. And so, yeah, basically, I lost my train of thought. It's really late into the day for me, and I've had a really busy day. I still have lots of things to do because I will still be doing my taxes today. It's so hard for me to focus on things I want to say. So I think instead of diverting to any other topic, I will stick at least for now to the painting. It's the reason why I usually am like diverting into some other topic is because the painting process is something I've done before, or I just want to talk about different things. Or something I have on my mind that I want to share. I don't know, it's just today I'm not really. We will see, perhaps I will warm up. But for now, I'm just, as you can see, filling in those cloud layers with shades of black with shades of gray that are really, really close together in value. And I really like to do that in my normal paintings. And this is actually, the concept for this painting is really similar to something I've already done. I didn't realize it until I was done inking, and then I thought about how I'm going to execute the background, and it hit me, you've done it already. You've done it before. Now, the good thing is that video is not on YouTube, because I've done something that was a painting that I've done on stream. So yeah, it's not that bad, but still, it's pretty funny to realize that. And there, we had a garbage day today. The big bins are being rolled in the houses right now. I'm getting caught off guard again. Okay, so basically when I do these kind of layers of cloudy gradiented layers in color, it looks flat, but it looks to me really interesting because it has a few things going for it. There is the gradient, and there is usually more than one color, so there is that interest is being kept within the color. But when it's just one shade with different shades of the same color, it's a little bit boring, a little bit flat. I didn't like it at all. And so I've decided, this was supposed to be a quick painting too. I've decided to go a little bit further and just do, add black ink into the layers of clouds, just making them, shading them basically. So I'm just adding a wet wash over each section, and I'm dropping a little bit of black ink, just pure black ink, and I'm swirling it with the brush. And then I have one section that's got cut off because I didn't notice that I didn't hit the record button when I was doing it, but I still hit the stop recording button. So what I've basically recorded was a good 20 minutes of me drying the piece of the painting, just drying it and applying water to the next section. You can see plenty of my head. It was pretty funny. Well, you didn't really miss much, so that's good. So once I've added those black sections to the clouds, or the black shading, that's when it started to really, do it for me. It had that third thing going for it. Not only the tonal value, the difference, not only the layers, the pattern, but also there was a little bit of shading, which added depth. Yeah, basically. So the next thing, I wanted to push that depth a little bit further, and I've decided to add shading to the edges of that, the oval, the background, to make it look almost like as if you were looking into it, almost like, as if it was 3D, as if you could look inside. It was some kind of opening, cut, window, whatever you call it. And that's when it also started, I started to get the idea to just make it all a night scene. Because I already had that black background now, I already wanted to make it an evening or, just night scene. But I wasn't sure whether I wanted to add any light sources, anything like that, because initially that teacup was supposed to be powered by some little fluffy clouds, like some energy that was coming out of that little flower bud near the piece that you're holding onto, the ear, whatever. But what I actually thought would be more interesting is to try and make a character that was completely surrounded by nothing else, just night. There was no light source whatsoever. Of course, even if there is no light source, there's always going to be some kind of light source, because there's maybe some kind of moon or just stars. Even at night, you will have shadows and highlights. And so I thought it would be really interesting to try and pull off a character like that. That's something I've actually never done. There's always a light source in my paintings. I love, even when it's pretty much actually, when there is night, I make a painting in the night, just so that the scene is a night scene, just so that I have a good background for some kind of light source. And you can really see that in every single one of my paintings. If I have a light source, the reason I just want to make that light stand out. That's the only reason. And so I've never really thought about how I could pull off a character that was completely surrounded by night. Just, it's not maybe something that I would do often because, of course, where is the interest in that? But, just for the sake of knowing, and perhaps I will find something interesting in that. You never know. And so the first thing I thought I would do is, cover the whole character in one layer of color and see where I go from there. And what I did was I actually left highlights. For the first time ever, I left highlights on purpose. Now, one thing that I should have probably thought about a little bit more is where my light source would be coming from, because even at night, as I've said, there is a light source. And because of that, if you notice really closely, I've pretty much left all the edges, at least majority of the edges, white. Just imagining that perhaps the light would be coming from behind, or she's just, there is no light. So I would this would be the lowest possible shadow. And so I imagine that the deepest shadow would be in the middle. I don't know if it's hard to go through my thought process, but that's what I thought at that time. And so the first thing I did is I'm using that same wash that I used in the background that I kept adding water to. And I've just used it to completely flatten the character, to make it seem like she's part of that painting. And I wanted to work from there to add even deeper shadows to make her stand out a little bit more. Now, as you will see once I keep progressing, there is a bit of a flaw in that thinking. Now, the execution, the idea is good, and I will definitely return to it if I ever want to draw a character at night. However, leaving all the edges white was not the best option, because it really is confusing where to add the actual shadows, the deeper shadows. Because not every surface is the same, and let's put it this way, every surface reflects light differently. And so for me, it was actually really, really hard to decide what was made of what and how much light should be, reflected off of certain things. And at some point I felt like the fabrics looked too plasticky because there was just too much light reflected off of them. The shadows were too sharp on that small space. And so it was a little bit confusing. The effect is really satisfying, but this is one of those pieces that was really a pure experiment, more even so than the picture I've done yesterday, because there I could imagine what I was doing. In this case, I've never done anything similar in any medium. I love, the relationship between shadow and sparkly shinies, the light. And so it was really hard for me to actually imagine a character, how it would look like in the darkness. Now, you probably should mention now, I should look some kind of pictures online, just reference. I actually don't think about reference that much, and it's another flaw. I think I should pull references more. I'm just trying to imagine stuff, and that's good. That's good, of course. I don't see anything bad with that, but it slows the process. It would definitely be faster if I just studied, how light looked on pure, just night. Oh my goodness. Characters surrounded by night without any light sources in it. All in all, I think I did a very, a good job. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I'm in no means dissatisfied. I just think it could have been done faster and with less. I was really, you can see me here, I didn't speed it up too much so that you can see precisely what I'm doing. This is a very, there's a lot of small details. But I keep fiddling. I keep adding, deeper shadows. I try to add just to, because of course at some point I've added that one layer of same shade of gray. And now I had to keep pulling the shadows deeper and deeper because I have a problem with adding shadows that are too deep. Just because that's not my style of painting. Like I've mentioned before, and it's not like I'm afraid of them or anything. That's probably a bit of an exaggeration. But for me, when I work with watercolor, I like the color. I don't care about the shadows much. And so often I will pull the character itself is made of, details of different shapes, patterns. I love adding patterns, but I don't particularly like to add shadows just because I don't feel there's the need for them. Someone in comments said that my illustrations looked rich. I really like that description because that's the word I was missing. I like rich illustrations. I like when there's a lot of things going on in an illustration, and so that's what I'm looking in my own illustrations, the detail, the pattern, there's like some kind of story going on. Things looking, anatomically correct or in a good perspective or shaded, not so much. That's my secondary priority. Of course, at some point, you have to do it, of course. But since I don't do it normally, let's go back to the topic. Since I don't do it normally, for me, just this here was a really big challenge, this picture. Because when I'm thinking about a character at night, there should be really some deep shadows because everything is just put, much darker than it normally would. I mean, even the light that's reflected, it shouldn't be as bright as this one here. It should be much darker. Now, I think if I at some point I'm trying to make some of the highlights a bit duller. Is that a word? A bit more dull? Just because everything seemed way too bright. I was trying to put the character into the background and she was standing out too much. But on the other hand, if I added too much shadow, then everything would be just dark mess. So it was a challenge for me, drawing without a light source. Or at least without a light source that allowed, shiny. Here I'm adding a little bit more shadow plus a little bit more texture to that teacup. Just because, it was flat. It looked flat, and as I've said, I was afraid to add those deep shadows that I knew I needed to add. And here you can also see that the highlight at the bottom, close to that really, really deep shadow, is a bit too light. It's too sharp. And that's why you can see me doing it now. I'm coming back and I'm pushing those highlights a little bit back. I'm just adding a bit darker highlight, I suppose. Because normally I'm used to adding white highlights. I love it. I love adding white highlights. Rather than adding a deep shadow, I would actually prefer to add that really shiny, sparkly highlight. And so here, when there's no really a space for the shiny, sparkly, light source, I have to think that there is also no space for a very shiny, sparkly highlight because there's nothing really to create that highlight. And that was a bit challenging for me, really, just to realize that and try to balance the character enough so that it wouldn't look just pasted on top, because at the moment it looks pasted on top of the background. It doesn't look like it's part of the background. And I actually think that I didn't make it part of the background. It's still a very cute illustration. I love it. I really like it. I have nothing really to... I do have a few things, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I do have a few things that I could critique. But that doesn't mean that I'm unhappy with it. Repeating it again. So, and yeah. The only thing I've added with white gel pen were the movement lines, you know, quote unquote. It's basically to make her seem like what she's doing. She's moving through the air. So the lines are always going to be in the direction of the movement. That's what I like to do. And then I think I'm adding it off camera. I don't even remember at this point. I've just added a little bit of, you know, I call it magical dust. Just a few little dots here and there to kind of blend out those lines because they seemed very sharp to me. And then, because one thing I wanted to do was deepen the shadows even more with the help of a fineliner. But the problem was for me is that I wasn't sure how far I should take them, or just basically where to put them until the highlight, the white part was in. Even though the white gel pen lines are not a highlight, it's not supposed to be light, but it kind of reads like that. And so I had to make sure that it fits with, you know, where I was putting the deeper shadows, because it just wouldn't make sense otherwise. It's a very, very hard painting to explain. It was because normally I know what I'm doing. I kind of, well, I have a kind of an idea what I'm doing. Okay, I'm pretty sure, you know, I know what direction I want to take in the painting, and I kind of know there's always some, you know, margin for the wiggle room for changes, but I pretty much know what I want to do with the sketch. And so this one, it was, I was thinking on the spot what to do next. There was nothing really planned about the character. As you can see, one of the good ways to measure if I know what I'm doing is whether or not I'm adding patterns, because there is no patterns on this whole picture, even though there were planned patterns there. There's a little bit of a line on the dress, but that's pretty much it. It's because I was so concentrated on adding the shadows and the highlights and balancing that there was just no time left in my head, no focus left for any other detail. So that's pretty much for today. I hope I didn't, you know, banter or ramble, whatever you call it, too much. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to cook dinner because it's also my turn today. Everything in one day. So yeah, thank you so very much for watching, guys. The video will be up a little bit later than usual. I hope you're still awake. If not, then good morning. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!